Limits are only limits when you decide they are. There was something about the freedom of being in the wheelchair that gave me identity, an identity that I never really had.
I am a believer that we experience things physically first. So sometimes we can't just witness it. We can't just be told it. We have to feel it and actually be a part of that moment.
There's a song by a Christian artist, Matthew West. I think he's singing it to his wife, and he uses the line, growing up and growing old. And I shared a little clip with my wife recently, and she was like, growing up? I said, sweetie, I've grown up so much in the last 20 years, and I'm still growing up. One of the things that I say when I share my story is 12-year-old Jeff, if he was sitting here looking at almost 51-year-old Jeff, he wouldn't.
Welcome back, everybody, to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now. I love to have the real, raw conversations with some of the most influential and impactful people on this planet. Some you've heard of, some you may not have, but the reality of it is each and every one of you has a story. It matters whether or not you can become aware of your own so that you can become intentional in how you start applying that moving forward. And we all have the ability to tap into the collective wisdom of other people's stories. And our guest here today, I have had him on my live, but in the short time that I have gotten the chance to be with him, he's real, he's honest, and he just rolls through life. He was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease, and he lives his life in a way not only to show himself what's possible, but to pull others along that path, because at the end of the day, breaking expectations is really the greatest path and the quickest way to freedom. He's done this in consistent ways throughout his life, but he's also on a path right now to go climb Kilimanjaro, and it'll be a documented story that I know you'll want to be able to tap into later. So, Jeff, it's good to have you here with us today, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. I'm excited.
Well, you know this only because you were on my other show. The only question I ask every guest on both shows is, outside of however I've introduced you or whatever I've said about you, who are you in your words?
I'm a regular dude, man. I'm just a regular guy. I'm doing cool stuff and choosing to do cool stuff, but I am a regular guy. I'm a husband, 20 years. My wife and I celebrate 20-year anniversary this year. I'm a dad of 2 girls, 17 and 13. I cook dinner almost every night. I wake up and I make their lunches. And my wife recently retired from teaching after 25 years. So I'm married to a retiree, I like to say. But I'm a regular dude. I love to be with my buddies. I love to work out. And, I'm the guy who, if you need something, you can call. And I hope you do. I was at the gym this morning, and one of the trainers, he's leaving and changing his life a bit, and I won't see him. His name's Derek. I said, Derek, I just want to wish you all the best. And I said, look at me. If you need anything, you call me or you text me. And I said, I mean it. And I've only known Derek for a short time, not super well, but I care about the guy. So that's who I am.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to one or two things that you said in there, but there's something that I've noticed with you, and I'm going to ask for permission to reflect it back, but it's not going to be in a way that I traditionally would, because I don't have any agenda here, nor am I trying to necessarily show you something, but you speak with a lot of emotion. And you can tell in moments, particularly when you get to the place with your wife or your daughters, or even the humility and grounding in how you're offering yourself to show up for this friend. I can hear the emotion in your voice. And I don't say that with any judgment at all. I say that with a lot of admiration. I appreciate how real and vulnerable you are able to allow your voice and the tone of your voice to reflect the emotion that it's paired with your face in some cases, but it's very palpable in your voice. And I guess I want to pause for just a second. And the reason I want to pause is because one of the things I've talked about in my own story is that I learned to shut off pain a long time ago, which also meant I learned to shut off tears, because crying wasn't okay. Right. And I believe that men crying is a sign of strength, and true strength actually hides behind vulnerability. So I've had to relearn to allow myself to feel in a brief moment what seems to be so natural for you. And so can we maybe just pause there for a second? And can you talk to me about what you experience when the emotion comes up in your voice? And has that been something that has always existed for you, or is this newer in this stage of your life?
That's a great question, Brian. I'm an emotional guy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who looks at a TV commercial and tears up.
I love
because
that.
it makes me think of somebody I love. So I think it's always been part of my story. I've never been afraid to shed a tear if it's there. I often feel tears behind my eyes.
I feel like I can hear it in your voice.
And
yeah.
They don't always show up, but I feel, but it's just interesting. Like but there is still a part that holds back. There's still a part that holds back and I know we're going to get into my story with Kilimanjaro, but every time people show up for me in that context and serve me and help me to do the things that I'm up to, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. And there's often emotion that comes with that. And so I think I've turned 51 in 3 days. I think now in my 50s, I've become even more open to living life with emotion.
Yeah. Well, the reason I paused so early on this is because, like I said, I admire how real it is for you. I can tell that it's been something that has existed for a long time, but that I also believe you're honoring, and you said it at the end, like to a greater degree at this point in your life. And I think we all develop that level of appreciation when we learn to live with emotion, because human connection without emotion isn't really human connection. Right. And so I'm going to come back to some of this as we get further into the interview. But, this relates a little bit to even the conversation we had pre-show, just real briefly. And it's this idea that you call yourself just a regular guy. And as somebody who loves to like breathe life and infuse life into people, sometimes those types of comments are diminishing, right? It's like, well, I'm just a regular guy. I'm nobody special. I don't have these talents. And you didn't say all that, right? But what I would like to understand is, what does it mean for you to be a regular guy? And how do others receive your perception of being a regular guy, given what you have gone through, which I know we'll talk about, and what you're getting ready to do? Doesn't seem like it's a regular guy thing.
Well, again, great question. I think I've become more aware of the importance of being relatable.
Yeah, agree.
And so that, I think, is the source of this statement, I'm a regular guy. People see me on the Spartan course, or they see this weekend we'll be in Colorado climbing a mountain to train. And people see me on the news. I've been in 3 or 4 pretty significant here in the New York City area news stories. And they see that, and and I do it too. We see someone on the news and we elevate them. Yeah. And I could never do that. I could never do that. And part of my mission with my charity and what we're up to is I want it to open people's eyes that I can do that too. Yeah. Or at least get them asking the question, I wonder if I could. Because that's a question that changed my life. Yeah. So me standing on the step of I'm a regular guy, I'm an ordinary guy, is to say, yes, I'm doing and choosing to do extraordinary things, and you can too.
Yeah. I fully appreciate where you're coming from with that. And again, I don't remember if I shared with you on the other show, and this isn't about me, so we're not going deep, but I have a similar experience because of the injury I had with my arm, is that once someone knows my story, they often will downplay their own, or it's like, oh, my trauma is nothing compared to yours, or, oh, that's nothing like what I've been through. And yet at the same time, I wouldn't be doing my job if I was just purely motivation. They have to be able to see possibility in themselves, not just to see it in other people, but to know that it's there in ourselves. At the same time, I did not allow myself to fully own all of the ways that, despite other people being capable and wanting them to believe that I also was not normal or regular in other ways, and the ways that I have gone about life. And so a relatability piece is humility. It's about allowing yourself to connect with others. Where can you own where you are not regular, where you are extraordinary, whether or not someone else is capable of it? Like, where are you uniquely gifted in a place that allows you to stand out against anyone that you're standing or sitting next to?
I mean, you've tapped into some really deep work that I'm literally in process on with my coach, my counselor, within myself, with God. Because there are days, probably more days than I'd like to admit, Brian, that I don't think my story is worthy, that I over index on the ordinary guy.
Yeah.
And I see that, like, imposter syndrome. I raise my hand super high and I acknowledge it. Like, when someone came to me and said, "Hey, Jeff, let's do a documentary or some sort of film based on your story," and I'm like, who am I? There's Brian over there who's dealt with way more trauma than me. I'm just a guy in a wheelchair. And so this is deep work. I mean, these are deep waters that I am swimming in literally every day as we speak. When I choose to step into the space that you're inviting me to step into, I am coming to the ordinary parts of life, but they are truly extraordinary, that I am an amazing dad. And it's hard even for me to hear me say that. I know it's true. I am an amazing dad. I am a loyal friend to the level that is extraordinary. I'm willing to test myself in ways that lots of people aren't willing to test themselves, to see if that's actually a limit. So those are just a few ways that if I allow myself, and I need to be in the practice more of allowing myself, but to step into the extraordinary.
Well, thank you for, yet again, not a surprising level of transparency and vulnerability in talking about how you're even working through these components real time. It's highly relatable. And that was the side of shame that I dealt with, is not my worth necessarily, though I had moments that were there. It was when I showed up and I did things. It's, who do you think you are? Right? All the major things I did in my life, I felt the need to apologize for years. Even though I was doing a lot of really good things that helped a lot of people, I still couldn't even step into it. And it is a part of my story, but I'm really, really grateful for you even bringing us, knowing that you're actively real time working through even the nature of what I was asking behind that question. Because guess what? There is no final destination, only constant evolution of self, right? Both of us, no matter where we are today, there's always room for improvement, room for growth. And there's a humility and grounding knowing that we can be better than we are today and the pinnacle of what we're working towards. We've spent already a few minutes in some really deep, awesome conversation, and we've referenced your story a few times, right? I want to go behind your story a little bit further into the conversation, but let's just start there. What's the story that you're most well known for? What's connected to this documentary and this Kilimanjaro reference that we've given? Bring people into where you're at in your journey, and then we'll unpack it further.
Yeah. So I was, as you pointed to, I was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease in 2006. It slow progressed, but by 2016, honest conversation with my wife, like, dude, you cannot be walking around. You're going to fall and hit your head. And you're worth more to me alive than you are dead. And so that started the process, like acknowledging the truth of that, which is really hard. Because I'm 6'3", 200 and change. I'm a big guy. It's always been my identity. And then all of a sudden in the wheelchair, I'm the shortest guy in the room, minus the little kids. But I did it. I transitioned to life in a wheelchair in 2017 and life progressed. I just, it wasn't even a question. There were moments when I was like, ooh, what are my limits? What could I do? What can I do? But, a young family, growing business, active in my community, okay, let's just keep going. And then around COVID time, I started to get curious. The beauty of social media, there's lots of dark sides to it, but the beauty of social media is you get to see images especially in the adaptive community, of people testing themselves and doing awesome things. And there was one young woman who was an adaptive athlete. She was doing Spartan races with an organization called Oscar Mike. And I reached out to her. Her name's Devin. And I said, Devin, could I do it? And she goes, absolutely. And she connected me with an organization down in North Carolina called More Heart Than Scars. And so it took a little bit of time, but by 2023, I did my first obstacle course race. And you have to know, I am the risk adverse kid. Some of the little signals I've already given, you could probably tell there's some stuff that happened as a kid or how I saw myself as a kid that are part of the work. And so I'm not a risk taker kid or guy. I'm not an adventure seeker, but here I am doing an obstacle course race. And that flipped a switch. In the midst of that, I was literally off the ground in a wheelchair, a trail chair, and in the middle of the woods, where I have no business being, but I was navigating it with the help of the team. And that was the first moment when I think I said to myself, I'm doing the impossible. Mm. And fast forward then, did a Spartan race later that year, and then started to wonder about, could I climb a mountain? And I did, as a non-adventurous type, I didn't dream of Kilimanjaro, never dreamed of a mountain, but here I was thinking and wondering, I did this. I wonder if I could do the next level. And as life and as God would have it, Kilimanjaro came to me, and the opportunity to do that came, and it happened very rapidly. And in the midst of this, I got connected with a group called F3. F3 is Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. It's an outdoor men's workout group. As a guy in my late 40s at the time, all my friends, friends in your late 40s seem to be few and far between by choice or by circumstance. And all of a sudden, I had this group of guys who we work out together in the gloom of the morning at 5:30 a.m. And they came alongside me through all of this. And they were the first ones to say, you're climbing Kilimanjaro, we're going with you. We're going to help make it happen. And so Kilimanjaro was on the calendar. And that was at the end of 2023. And since the beginning of 24, we've been training, raising money, and trying to make this happen.
Your choices are ones that make sure that you keep moving. And it's obvious that you choose and have to choose every day how you want to show up every day. Right. And I think individuals who've gone through, in particular, different health or physical challenges like you and I have a different appreciation for what that is. But also there is this thing called grit that just keeps us going, right? Like it's the alternative is not even an option for me. And it doesn't sound like it ever has been for you. So as a self-professed risk averse guy by nature, right? Where and how did you learn to choose the hard that was ultimately the pathway to what you want?
Well, it just took once, and then once turned into twice. And there's two things that play here. Number one is when I started going to F3 at 5:30 in the morning in my wheelchair and having no idea if this was going to be possible, and doing hard stuff like my version of a burpee, or lifting a 37-pound cinder block over my head 100 times, doing something in me came alive and keeps coming alive. I was there Tuesday morning. And there's a part of me that comes alive when I do hard things. Parts of me that maybe I've never seen before, or went to sleep a long time ago. So that's part number one, is I come alive when I do hard things. And that's part of what I talk to groups about and kids is do hard things. I love Joe DeSena, the CEO of Spartan. He talks about his podcast is called The Hard Way, and he is always preaching the gospel of doing hard things. And so that's part one. Part two is I see it as responsibility, as stewardship. That's the word I choose to use here. Is I've been given this literal seat with responsibility to live in a way, first for my daughters, 13 and 17. I mean, my 13-year-old was 4 years old when I got in this wheelchair. She's really only, her level of consciousness only has me ever in a wheelchair.
Yep.
And so I see it as stewardship to this place that I'm in, to do the things that I do as a model for others, and that they can see that disability does not have to mean the end of the road.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's also interesting because even that word disability is something that took me a long time to be able to even acknowledge for myself, because I never have viewed myself as disabled. Right. And we know that there's lots of people in different spaces that have renamed it differently abled or whatever. Right. Like there's all these nuances that have existed there. But I also for so long made things more difficult for myself because I didn't want to be the standout adaptive athlete. And a lot of my life, right, I mountain biked for a long time. I only started doing adaptive equipment to my bike in probably the last 5 years, which has made a game, like it's a world of difference to actually have some assistance in places that I never knew any different, right? But for me, it was also different because I was 7 and I grew up with this. So I really didn't know much different. And my consciousness has rewired all of my memories. Even when I watch home videos now from when I'm a kid, they don't equate, right? The reason I go there as well is, you know, you very quickly had a shift in your life from completely perfectly able to, by definition, having a disability. And the identity, as you talked about, being this big, strong, strapping 6'3", 220-pound man into now I'm an adaptive athlete and an adaptive human that to do certain things that I used to be able to do, I have to now rely on others for assistance.
Yes.
Talk about the ego journey through that. And you talked about the letting go of the old identity, but how did you start to allow yourself to, I'm going to say, sit in your new identity, right? And roll away from the old one?
Well, this goes deep into my story. Like I did believe for a long time that I didn't matter. Not in a depressive sort of way, but sort of this kind of low grade version of I'm just a fat kid, you know, shops in the Husky section at Sears, you know, and I didn't think much of myself. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. Like there was a period after I was diagnosed where life slowed down significantly. Yeah. Meaning like before the wheelchair, and my mobility just got harder and harder, and I was using a cane, and life seemed to be just really slowing down. So I would say that's probably like 2007 till about 2016. So about 9 years. And that was hard. That was the hardest part of this whole journey, is because I literally, during that time, I was on the sidelines way more than I am today. And so when I got my wheelchair in 2017, that was like a revolution, like amazing. Like I can keep up with almost anybody, in some cases be faster than most people. I mean, sure, there's still, some places that I can't physically get to, rocky, grassy,
Right.
whatever that is. But, so for me, there was something about the freedom of being in the wheelchair that gave me, that gave me identity.
Yeah.
An identity that I never really had. And so I realized there's a trapdoor with that as well, that I've worked on and still work on. And so it's just a strange thing even to talk about, like that ego wise, identity wise, it actually got stronger. As my disability, as AMN, let's call it, as AMN progressed and I moved into a wheelchair.
I would suggest too, there's a lot of that came through the acceptance within yourself. All right. And that's no different, frankly, I think, to the difference and the contrast in mine. I think when I was able to finally own it is when I fully accepted, like, no matter whether I identify with disability or, adaptive or not, I am by definition, period. End of story. Right. Like, and not that I needed to hide from it, but at the same time, it is a rattling piece. And yet your freedom and your movement is what also translated to you being able to ground in it. You've referenced a lot about your upbringing and the parts of you pre this story that you're known for. If you look at and describe the contrast between the man that you were pre-diagnosis and the man that you are today and have become, how would you describe that contrast?
Well, one of the things I say when I share my story is 12-year-old Jeff, if he was sitting here looking at 50, almost 51-year-old Jeff, like, he wouldn't even know who he's looking at. He would not even recognize him. And so fear and worry, some anxiety was just at the core of my existence. I think it lessened as I matured. I went away to college. The traces of it were still there, less so than when I was a teenager and preteen and even younger. But he would not 12. I used 12 because that was a really, really hard season. 12, 13, 14, probably, 11, whatever that range in that spot. Like, he would not recognize me today.
So I can fully appreciate that. I want you to, if you can, describe who you believed you were then compared to who you are now.
Struggling. He was just struggling in his own head. He was doing his best. He was just trying to figure out what it meant to be a young man, moving in the direction of literal manhood, figuring out where he fit in the world, how he could fit into the world. I also was a late bloomer, physically. Puberty came later for me. And so that was a huge part. It's probably why I also say 12, 13, 14 was a very hard time. Shirts and skins, playing basketball. I was always shirts because, goodness, I didn't have any hair underneath my armpits. And so,
by the way, I'm there with you. I think I didn't get hair under my armpits until I was like 15 or 16. It was like really late.
So that's the nature of this, I call him my buddy, when I talk to him, because I do with my counselor, I do parts work.
Yeah.
And so
it's effective. It's effective work.
We talk to all the parts of me, and he's buddy. Hey, buddy, it's all with compassion and love, because I don't think he felt a lot of compassion and love, definitely not towards himself. And so I just try to extend compassion and love to him because he didn't feel that.
Well, what I want to also share with you is it's very obvious to me, being in your presence, the amount of compassion and love you pour into the world to allow everyone around you to feel. And the piece that I was so pleased and happy, excited, grateful that you leaned into when I gave you the permission and you allowed yourself to own some of your just exceptional areas. You started with being a father, an amazing father, right? And you have 2 girls, right? You've talked about their ages. They're both teenagers, and both of them have lived most of their lives with you since this diagnosis. And frankly, for the younger one, most of her life with you in a chair, right? Yet you identify with this being probably your greatest area of strength and the emotion with which you talk about it. So you've allowed your girls to feel seen, to feel understood, to feel loved, to feel encouragement. And so I'd like to understand, when you became a father, what were the stated goals, if there were any, for who you wanted to be as a father, or how you wanted your kids to be raised and experience life?
Well, you have to know too that I've dreamed about being a dad since I was a little boy. I used to think about it all the time. In my mind's eye, it was always boys. It wasn't girls. So to be a dad of 2 girls, though, is amazing. They're amazing young women. Yeah, I don't know that I had a lot of intention at 2007 when my oldest was born. I just, while I always dreamed of that moment, I think and I don't know how you feel or felt, but it's overwhelming. And I think I'll use a general term. I just want to do it right. And I don't know that I could, at the time, could define right, but, I'm a work in progress. As I've noted, do work with coaches, counselors, on my own meditative work. Like, I'm a work in progress. And so I see things now, 17 years in of being a dad, that I would have zero conception of in 2007. Like, I see today the wounds of that 12-year-old and and how he drives the bus sometimes.
Yep.
Of me, and has driven the bus over the last 17 years and then 20 years of marriage. So I could give you a little speech of my dream of being a dad, but if I'm honest, like, I was such a baby, even how old was I as a 32-year-old man? I was such a neophyte at that time. And there's a song by a Christian artist, Matthew West, and he's singing it. I think he's singing it to his wife, and he uses the line toward this overture towards her: growing up and growing old. And I shared the little clip with my wife recently, and she was like, "Growing up." I said, "Sweetie, I've grown up so much in the last 20 years, and I'm still growing up." Yeah. So that applies to my role as a dad as well.
Of course it does.
I'm growing right alongside them.
Yeah. I really just appreciate the level of honesty and realness that you're able to exist in every answer with. It's an admirable thing. And I could not agree with you more in so many of the elements of what you've said as it relates to my own experience. I literally have told my wife, we've been together for 19 years, that I have grown up with her. Right. And we're still growing together. You talk about not having as clear of intent early in the process, right? As you call yourself, a neophyte, and that you couldn't necessarily determine what was right back then. Acknowledging and accepting the fact that, yes, you're still a work in progress. That means you're human, just like the rest of us, and you're actually putting the effort in. So acknowledging that before you even answer the question, what do you believe is right now as it relates to what you believe your role is as a father?
Loving their mom and delighting in their mom. And I miss the mark more than I should. But what's right is loving their mom, being patient with her, loving her, delighting in her. That's what's right for them. I mean, it's right for my wife, but speaking about parenthood, that's what's right for them. Because I think about, I pray about those that they'll partner with in their life, and I want to be to my wife, to their mom, the type of man that they're going to be attracted to and want to spend their lives with. Because that's how I want those men to treat them, and to engage with them. And so that I know is right. And to see me, what's right is also less about what I teach them and about what they see.
Yeah.
And how I engage with the world. Our faith is super important. And I heard recently somebody talking about going to church, and they said, yeah, going to kids ministry or youth, that's fine. But what's better is for them to sit with you right there in the worship, and for them to see you pouring your heart out and singing and whatever it might look like, raising your hands or just being quiet, but that they can witness worship. And so that is also, I think, what I know now is, and I think I can say I've done the right things. Have I screwed up? Have I not done it all the time? Absolutely. But by and large, I have done the right things. And so for them to witness a life well lived, whether it be worship, whether it be how I interact with their mom, how I engage with the grocery store clerk, but to be the model, a model of a human that they can see and look up to.
Beautiful answer in so many ways. What would your girls say about you? How would they describe you to others?
Now you're going to make me cry. Because I just asked Maddie yesterday, because I was feeling low. I said, Matt, are you proud of me? And she just gave me a hug. She said, Dad, I'm proud of you. That's all I want. I want them to be proud of me. I, of course, want them to love me, but I just want them to be proud of me. There is nothing greater. Everything else can fall away. But if my wife and my girls think highly of me and are proud of me, that's all I need.
Thank you. Thank you for going there. You've talked about this team that's going to be required for you to make this work. Can you give us more granular details as to what that means, right? In this training, in this effort to climb Kilimanjaro, what are you particularly focused on in terms of what you're training for and how you're going about it? How is the team supporting you in this process? And how are you surrendering to and accepting this help?
I mean, I could talk about logistics and how it works, but what you just asked is part of, I call this whole journey. You start back, let's say January of 24 till now, and then 3 months from now. This journey is a journey in my heart. And there was a moment, a key moment, I forget what race it was, because I get frustrated. Like, we're on a Spartan course or we're on a mountain trail, and dude, I'm just sitting there. And I would get in my head, I'm like, I wish I could do more. But there was a moment of peace. Again, I think it was maybe in the Poconos or somewhere, it doesn't really even matter, where I just realized I'm giving my team this gift of being able to serve me. And yes, I have a job. I mean, it is not a small job to be in the chair, to engage my core, to be a little bit smaller. I also made a commitment last year to lose weight, because goodness knows if I could lose weight, that helps the team. That's less poundage going up the mountain. So I've done that. I've lost 50 pounds and going to hopefully lose a few more before the climb. But this piece around acceptance, and actually it's that I'm giving them a gift by having invited them into this process and being willing to trust them to sit there, that they are served.
I agree with you. That is the most difficult and challenging part, right? And no matter what we do in life, it's that internal game. It's less about the logistics and the outside. But to give some perspective and some visual for those, just to understand, right? Because I hear implications that they're carrying you in some components, right? And so obviously I've seen others navigate this type of journey. Are you doing anything actively in the chair? Are they carrying you the majority of it? Like, give us just a little bit of the logistics to help us understand what it takes to get you up Mount Kilimanjaro, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it is a commitment from all parties.
So it's a rope system.
Okay.
So the chair has a handle on the back that the person back there clips in, and they're called the brake. There are at minimum 2 people with ropes tied to the chair on each side to make sure that I don't tip if we are off camber.
Yep.
And there's 1 to 2 people out front hooked in with harnesses and ropes. They're called the horse. And then there's people at the ready if the incline is challenging enough, where people will hook into those horses, the guys or gals at the front, and help them even more to pull me up the hill or mountain. So it's this rope system. And at certain points, there could be 12, 13 people. We call it on the chair. So that's on challenging a sense. The times when I'm thankful that I am not paraplegic because of my condition. So there are moments when I do get out of the chair to navigate a certain boulder or tree stump. And with the help of a couple people about my height, navigate that. So I could be out of the chair taking a few steps. There could be moments where it's easier if they just grab a handhold on the chair and lift it up over the tree stump or over the rock. There's got to be points like that all throughout the Kilimanjaro hike. At the base of the mountain, it's rainforest, and the root systems are in some cases are like staircases.
Yeah.
And then on summit day, there's going to be very challenging rocks and points on the trail that I will literally have to get out of the chair and be helped through. It'll be easier for them to do that and safer than to lift me out of the chair.
Yeah. Well, I want to first and foremost say thank you for, again, expanding and giving us some of those visuals. I also want to say thank you to your team. Because I know that all of this is a team effort, and each and every one of you are making this happen. You are the one that gets to be the face and to show people what's possible, but there's others that are helping make it possible. And I know that that's how you lead, that's how you communicate. And I just want to double down and honor that officially, because it's a commitment, both with training, time, energy, resources. Like, there is a mental and emotional load that goes into making something like this happen as a team. And it is really beautiful to witness. With your whole concept of what's possible, right? Your impossible, like my impossible, the nonprofit, the framing, I identify really deeply with it, but like you, I'm human, and I have wavered in that in moments, right? Where I don't believe, or I don't see the path, or I doubt myself. And I was in this conversation with my brother not long ago, and it was interesting because my son made a comment about it also. Is I've played video games my whole life, even though I don't really have full dexterity in my left hand. I just learned how to do it, right? I didn't know any different. But as is the case with any number of things that I've done and you've chosen to do since you've had these challenges, right? My brother said something that did almost bring me to tears. And he said, Brian, I see people say they can't do something. And he goes, it's really difficult for me to view anything as impossible while being your brother. That hit me really hard. And I've lived my life often to try to be the model and the example to show people what's possible, not for my sake, not for the ego, but for exactly what you grounded in the beginning, to allow them to see what's possible if they choose, if they put in the effort, if they actually align. When did you learn this concept of impossible? It sounds like you were risk averse before. It sounds like this disorder highlighted it. But like, when was this fully understood and embraced in your life? When did that part become aware for you?
So I told the story of getting curious. I wonder if I can do a Spartan race. And I did that race in Asheville, North Carolina in May of 23. In that moment when I was in the midst of the forest and realized I was doing the impossible. And then that led to, I wonder if I could take the next step, if I could push another limit. So around that time is when I started to just personally challenge myself on stepping out of fear. So my life, for a better part of my life, fear had a much larger voice than it should have. And I started to just get more comfortable with being afraid. I just had a huge milestone, a little bit of a segue, but not really. So a huge milestone on the Spartan course. Every Spartan race has an obstacle called the A-frame cargo.
Yep.
So it's about 30 feet, cargo net. And so my MO on that is always to do it, but almost to do it with my eyes closed. So I don't, because I'm scared of heights. This last one in New Jersey in April, I said to my buddy Luke, I'm like, I'm not doing that this time. And so it just pushed another little limit. And so I got to the top, and usually I just kind of barrel roll over the top and go to the other side. And then as quickly as I can get down, I stopped. I sat straight up on the top of the A-frame. And I sent a message to a friend of mine who has always challenged me in that way. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was scared, but it was amazing. So this idea of impossible, it's really, what are those things I'm afraid of? What are those things that I think I can't do because either it's too hard, or I'm going to get hurt, or whatever the rabbit hole that fear takes me down. I wonder if I could look that in the face and do it anyway.
Yeah. I really appreciate that story. It was not at all a segue, because sometimes the shift from impossible to possible happens literally in a moment over something seemingly insignificant. But I am a believer that we experience things physically first, right? So sometimes we can't just witness it. We can't just be told it. We have to feel it, right? And actually be a part of that moment, which is what you did at the top of that A-frame. You reclaimed it, right? You reclaimed that moment, and you were like, no, I am no longer going to allow this 30 feet to deter me from experiencing how badass I am to be able to do this and climb this cargo net with no functioning legs. That's fucking badass, first of all. Okay. But the second piece to that is that, yeah, many people would look at Kilimanjaro and believe that could be impossible for someone like you, right? In your situation. But not everybody's going to climb Kilimanjaro. And you are somebody that coaches and consults, helping people understand just the complex challenges of day-to-day life, the elements of how do we become resilient in general, how we can take control and transform ourselves into the lives that we have. So sometimes we, as examples, have to go to the extreme for people to ground possibility for themselves. What are the day-to-day possibilities that you're trying to allow, whether it's your wife, your daughters, or the people you impact, to be able to step into, given that not everybody's going to go climb Kilimanjaro?
Yeah, I think, I told you about F3, just to call guys forward from um, a mode that guys in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they fall into. F3 calls it sad clown syndrome.
Yeah.
On the outside, you're smiling, but inside there's tears. Yeah. And so many guys here in America, but all over the world, but especially here in the West. So to call forward guys who are stuck, not necessarily, maybe there's a little fear, but they're stuck in that zombie mode, the sad clown. This is all there is. And to call them forward and say, no, there's more. There's more that's possible as a 50-year-old guy, as a 45-year-old guy, whatever their age in that window is. I can't tell you how many times I was in a parade, the St. Patrick's Day parade. Our F3 group walked in our local parade, and people came up to me and said, You're the guy from News 12. You're the guy from ABC 7. I saw you. I want to come to F3. So inspiring them every day just to choose something different, that there's more, that there's purpose, that there's friendship. At this age, at the age that we are, that it's not, there's more than just resigning yourself to the fact that this is all there is. So that's every day. I mean, we go to Costco, we go to the park, we go to church, and they're just zombies everywhere.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
So just to call, I have a heart for men, to call men forward to something more.
Yeah. Well, and I would like to say I have a heart for humans, but I am also a big believer that men in a lot of ways can influence environments faster and easier in a whole variety of ways than others, just because of the size of our energy and what that masculine frequency puts out. I agree with you. There's a lot of men that are hurting and a lot of men that need the help. And yet their intent is in the great place. It's just that their words, actions, and behaviors that they can't escape keep them stuck, right? And you're giving them the perspective to be able to do that. I teach this concept of the second that we protect ourselves, we guarantee we disconnect ourselves, right? It's in those moments that we have fear, scarcity, shame take over. It's, that invisible armor that kind of hits us. And inevitably, a lot of what you've talked about is being able to remove those layers of armor and open yourself up so that you're not living in such a protected and guarded way. And that's what's allowed you to live into life. And you've been very transparent in the fact that you're still in the journey. Guess what? Cool. We are, all of us. I'm so happy that you don't sit here on a pedestal and be like, guys, yeah, I have all this shit figured out and I'm perfect. And no, that's not the story. That's not it. It's about how do we do this together, right? If you were to ground yourself in this moment, where do you believe, if anywhere, you are still protecting yourself?
Where am I still protecting myself? Well, a place that just this comes up because I have been avoiding it because to be honest, I don't know what to do with it, and that I have never been devastated by my diagnosis of my condition. Like I authentically put a smiling face because I am happy and I am grateful. But a coach and mentor of mine said, he looked at me a few years ago and he said, Jeff, you have never been devastated by your disability and by how your life changed. And so he's right. Like I've never been devastated by it, but there's a part of me that I sense, I don't feel it viscerally. It's just a sense that he's right. And that I've never given much sunshine to it.
I would suggest that connects to a couple of the other things that we talked about with your ability to even own things, right? And there is some real truth in that. Do I have permission to challenge the perspective just a little bit?
Of course.
You don't strike me as the type of person that would be devastated by anything.
That's true.
And so I'm not sure that devastation is the place that you need to find or go to, right? But there is something probably unresolved or unprocessed But what I also want to challenge, just in the little time I've known you, and I don't want to discredit this person, the coach, not at all. I don't know. They do know more than me, and so do you. But there's a lot of humility and grounding in all of the pieces that you did struggle with, have struggled with, and still struggle with. And so I don't know what it's like to lose the use of my legs, but I have a different experience. But what I'm also going to suggest is that unless someone themselves has been through a physical trauma that has limited or changed their physical ability, I'm not sure they know what the standard or place they need to go is either. Why? Because someone who is an able-bodied person is going to be devastated at the concept of living a life that you and I do. Whereas the fact is we're already doing it. Right? And so what I'm just trying to ground for you is I'm not sure devastation is what you're trying to replicate. And I would just challenge that perspective while acknowledging what you're seeing is that there's something there that's probably unsettled, unresolved, or unprocessed that you could still gain from getting clarity on. And I hope you receive that with as much respect as I mean that, because you aren't the type that strikes me as being devastated by anything ever. That's not who I believe you to be, by the way, in the little time I've known you.
I think the spirit of it, Brian, and I get what you're saying, is grief. Like
yes, you haven't grieved it.
I've never grieved that loss.
Okay. I'm really happy that you went back there because that's where I was going to go full circle. That's exactly what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes the language we use is really important.
Yes.
And so even the term devastation sets a different precedent or expectation than you recognizing I never allowed myself to grieve, or I don't know how to grieve. The loss of the life that I once envisioned, the loss of my legs that I once had used to, right? The loss of being that big 6'3" strapping strong man. And now, right? All of those things are identity shifts that you talked about. And so, but that is what grieving is, right? My son, when he got diagnosed with autism, we had a grieving period. Why? Because we were grieving the loss of the life we envisioned for our son. But that also wasn't, we had to allow ourselves to do that to be able to fully embrace the life we're going to have with our son. Make sense?
Yes.
You're spot on. And I'm really grateful that you went there, and thank you for allowing me to just shift the perspective or hopefully give a little nudge of encouragement, because you're doing a lot of shit right, my friend. And so though I can recognize like sometimes there's still a gap, there's been a lot that you certainly have stepped into a place of gain on. And you are that inspiration, and you are showing people what's possible. You've been amazing in this interview, and I want to be respectful of your time as well. I got just a couple other brief questions. You said you have one tattoo and you're going to get another one after Kilimanjaro. I obviously am all about ink. I'm one of those that says my scars are the stories that were chosen for me. The ink is what the stories I've chosen for myself, right? All of mine have meaning. It sounds like yours do too. What tattoo do you have, and which tattoo are you planning to get?
So it's going to look upside down. So,
love it. Yeah, I got you.
So it's paintbrush cross. So kind of organic. So that's the only one. And then the other one is going to go on this forearm. And it's going to be my Kilimanjaro tattoo.
What do you have any idea what that's going to look like or symbolize yet?
I mean, I've played with it a little bit. It's going to be simple, like more silhouette.
Okay.
Like the silhouette of the mountain. It may be 19,314 feet or something like that. But something simple.
Dude, I love it. I love it. Well, you are also in a process right now to raise $100,000 to produce this documentary to really show the story, this journey, and bring people in to actually be able to witness what's possible. It's one thing to listen to you talk about it. It's a whole nother to see it on video. Right. And so I know that this is an important cause that will have a ripple effect of impact. Talk to us just a little bit about where people can support you, where they can donate, where they can learn more or follow, because your journey is one that I know I'm going to be wanting to witness. And I know after this conversation, others will too.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. So myimpossible.org is our home. And every dollar counts. Every dollar counts. And we are looking for partners who want to invest in their brands, invest in a larger way that can come alongside us and share in with their communities. We're in talks with an organization in Minneapolis who serves the disabled community there. to come alongside us in a significant way. So if you're listening to this and you want your brand to be connected in a deep way to the impossible being made possible, let's talk. Go to our website, reach out to me, and every dollar counts. So it doesn't have to be a 4 or 5 figure donation. Every bit counts.
Well, Jeff, I'm grateful that you're putting yourself in a position to be able to do all this. All your show, all the links, all your social media are going to be in the show notes for people to be able to find and navigate to, so they can come and donate. And if I were to ask you to leave us with a closing message from your heart, what would it be today, my friend?
Limits are only limits when you decide they are.
That's a powerful one, my friend. Grateful for all of your heart, all of your honesty, all your communication, and how accessible you have made yourself to not only myself, but to all of us listening. It's been an honor to be with you for this hour.
Awesome. It's honor's all mine, Brian. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And those who just saw Jeff jump in and flip open his lid, he's very real in the fact that he's still on this journey. He still is choosing every single day to lean into the hard. And he is always living in a way to shift his perspective from whatever might be perceived as limitations into complete possibility. He wants to live this way every single day as a model and example for each and every one of you, because guess what? Yes, he can do this. Yes, he is extraordinary. Yes, he is resilient and overcoming all these odds. But the most important grounding fact for Jeff is that he wants you to see, understand, and believe that you can too. If you want to be a part of this mission, this drive, roll alongside Jeff or support in any way, please go ahead and do so. But realize that if you do not, just take the lessons from this story and allow it to shift your perspective so you can choose different tomorrow. It's going to require you to flip open your lid and scan your can, but you can get it.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is, if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.